Listen closely, because this is not just a story. It is a mirror. That's reflect the struggles and realities of life many people encountered before a greatness. I remember the night Miles realized he was living in darkness. Not the kind you see with your eyes, but the kind that settles quietly inside a person and slowly whispers, "This is all life will ever be." He was 17. The power had gone out again. The room was hot, silent, and heavy. Miles sat on the edge of his bed, holding a worn book he didn't fully understand yet. Outside, people laughed, argued, struggled, and moved on with life. Inside, he felt stuck. He closed the book and sighed. "Is this how I'll end?" he whispered, trying but never becoming. That question hurt more than hunger, more than rejection, more than fear. That night something changed. Miles did not grow up with advantages, no guidance, no shortcuts, no one explaining how life really worked. He grew up where survival came before dreams, where people said, "Be realistic," whenever someone talked about growth or purpose. But Miles had been watching. He had seen what ignorance could do to good people. He had watched hardworking men remain stuck because they never learned new ways to think. He had seen talented youth waste years because they lacked discipline. He had seen people blame life while refusing to grow. And he made a decision. "If light is understanding," he said to himself, "then I will search for it no matter how long it takes." The next morning, Miles woke up before the sun. His body complained, his mind resisted, but he stood up anyway. While others drifted through the day without direction, he read. Not for grades, not for praise, but for clarity. He searched for exceptional materials, books about life, discipline, mindset, purpose, money, failure, and growth. Some pages confused him. Some ideas challenged everything he thought he knew. Sometimes he read one page for an hour, stopping to think deeply. He failed often. He made poor decisions. He trusted the wrong people. He misunderstood opportunities. He felt foolish more times than he could count. One day, someone laughed at him and said, "Why do you stress yourself so much? Life is already hard." Miles looked at him calmly and replied, "That's why I'm learning how to live it better." That became his rule. Self-discipline did not come easily. At 17, distractions were loud. Comfort was tempting. Giving up felt easier on hard days. But every time he felt weak, he reminded himself why he started. "Light doesn't come to the careless," he would whisper. He created structure for himself. Time to read, time to think, time to work, time to reflect. Even rest had meaning. He learned to control his impulses instead of letting them control him. Some nights his head felt heavy with thoughts. He closed his eyes and breathed slowly. Growth hurts, he told himself, but staying the same hurts longer. Slowly, very slowly, things began to change. He started seeing patterns in life. He understood people better. He made wiser choices. Confidence grew quietly, not from noise but from understanding. Older people noticed something different about him. One man asked him one evening, "What are you really looking for in life, Miles?" Miles paused and answered honestly, "Light, I don't want to walk blindly through life." The man nodded, "Then don't stop searching." Life tested him again. Problems at home disturbed his peace. Responsibility came early, pressure replaced comfort, sleep became short, focus became difficult, fear returned like an old enemy. One night he sat alone, his books untouched, his thoughts loud. What if this journey is too hard? He asked himself. What if I'm chasing something I'll never reach? Silence answered. Then he stood up. I didn't come this far to turn back, he said out loud. He adjusted. He learned from mistakes. He observed more and spoke less. He asked questions without pride. He wrote his goals down and read them every morning and every night. During that season, Miles learned something important. Light is not luck. Light is not talent. Light is built through choices. If you're listening right now and you feel lost in life, stay with this story. Journeys like this don't end in darkness. And if this path already speaks to you, this is a good moment to subscribe, because what comes next may change how you see your own journey. Miles began to change on the inside before the world noticed on the outside. Discipline became natural, diligence became identity, learning became hunger, growth became responsibility. People started asking, "What happened to you?" He smiled and said, "I stopped running from the dark. I started learning my way out." But the real test was still ahead. A major life opportunity appeared, one that could lift him or break him. Pressure followed. Fear returned, louder than before. The night before it mattered most, Miles sat quietly, heart racing. "I've done my part," he whispered. "Now I move forward." And that is where this part of the journey pauses. Not because Miles has reached the light, but because he is about to learn what light truly costs. The morning came quietly, but Miles did not. He woke before the sun again, not because he wanted to, but because his mind refused to rest. The opportunity ahead of him felt heavy. It was not written on paper. No certificate waited at the end. This was real life, where mistakes cost time, trust, and sometimes dignity. He washed his face with cold water and looked at himself in the mirror. "You're still learning," he said softly. "Don't be afraid." That day marked the beginning of a different kind of struggle. Miles stepped into the world with nothing but preparation and courage. He tried new paths. Some worked. Many didn't. He failed in public this time, not in silence. People saw it. People talked. "See," someone said behind him, "all that reading and discipline, what has it brought him?" The words stung, but he kept walking. Failure outside the classroom feels different. It hits harder. It questions your identity. It asks, "Who do you think you are?" Some nights, Miles lay awake replaying his mistakes. He wanted to disappear. He wanted to start over somewhere no one knew him. But each morning, he rose again. He learned that diligence in real life means showing up even when confidence is gone. It means correcting errors without excuses. It means listening more than speaking. It means accepting responsibility even when the outcome hurts. One evening, exhausted and frustrated, he slammed a book shut. "What am I missing?" he asked aloud. Then he realized something painful. Knowledge without patience becomes pride. Discipline without humility becomes pressure. So he slowed down. He stopped chasing quick wins. He focused on understanding people, timing, and himself. He learned when to push and when to wait. He learned that growth is not always loud progress. Sometimes it is quiet correction. Miles began to work with intention. He treated small tasks with respect. He learned skills most people ignored. He asked older men questions they wished someone had asked them earlier. One of them said to him, "Most people want light, but they hate the process that creates it." Miles nodded. He understood now. Money was tight. Comfort was rare. Temptation returned often, offering shortcuts and easy paths. Some friends drifted away when they realized Miles was no longer moving blindly with them. "You've changed," one said. "I'm trying to," Miles replied. Loneliness became part of the journey, not the sad kind, but the focused kind. The kind that forces you to hear your own thoughts clearly. During that season, Miles wrote one sentence in a notebook and underlined it twice. "Light comes to those who stay consistent when no one is clapping." If you're listening to this and your effort feels unseen, don't leave yet. This part of the journey matters. Stay with us. There's more clarity ahead. Slowly, results began to appear. Not overnight, not dramatically, but steadily. People started trusting him. Opportunities came quietly. Responsibility increased. And with it came fear again, fear of failing at a higher level. One night, Miles sat alone, staring into the darkness outside his window. "I'm still scared," he admitted, "but I'm no longer blind." That realization changed everything. He understood now that light is not the absence of fear. Light is knowing where to step even when fear is present. Just when he thought he had found balance, life prepared another test, bigger than before, heavier than the last. And this one would not forgive carelessness. Miles stood at the edge of a decision that would define the next phase of his life. The journey was far from over. The light was closer, but the cost was about to rise. That was the first sign he had grown. Before, he would have moved quickly just to prove something, to others or to himself. Now, he sat with the weight of the choice. He wrote down the risks. He listed what he knew and what he didn't. He asked himself hard questions and refused easy answers. What will this cost me? What will this teach me? Will this move me toward light or just noise? The answer did not come immediately. Days passed, pressure increased, people around him pushed him to choose fast. "Opportunities don't wait," one said. "You're overthinking," another added. Miles listened, but he did not bend. He had learned that rushing decisions is one of the fastest ways back into darkness. Finally, one quiet evening, clarity arrived, not as excitement but as calm. He felt it deep inside. "This is the step," he whispered. The moment he committed, life tested him again. The path demanded sacrifice. Time, comfort, relationships. He worked longer hours, he slept less. He faced unfamiliar challenges that made him feel small again. Some days, he wondered if he had made a mistake. One night, exhausted and frustrated, he sat on the floor and buried his face in his hands. "I'm trying to do the right thing," he said quietly. "Why does it feel so hard?" No voice answered him, but he remembered something he had once read. Growth often feels like loss before it feels like gain. So he stood up. Miles doubled down on discipline. He refined his habits. He cut distractions completely. He protected his mind fiercely. He learned from every mistake instead of hiding from them. When he failed, he took responsibility. When he succeeded, he stayed humble. When he didn't understand, he asked. People noticed the difference again, but this time it wasn't loud. They noticed they could rely on him. They noticed he stayed consistent. They noticed he didn't complain when things got hard. One older man pulled him aside and said, "You're building something most people never do, character." That word stayed with him. Character. Not success. Not popularity. Not praise. Character. But just as things began to stabilize, life shifted again. A sudden setback shook everything Miles had built. A door he thought was opening closed without warning. Time, effort, and hope felt wasted. He sat alone that night, staring at the wall. Did I misunderstand the light? He asked himself. Was all this effort for nothing? This time, doubt stayed longer. Days passed where motivation disappeared. He did what he had to do, but the fire felt weak. The journey felt endless. Then one morning, as he prepared to leave, he caught his reflection again. "You're not lost," he said slowly. "You're being refined." That thought steadied him. He realized something powerful. Light is not just found ahead. Sometimes it is revealed through setbacks. So he continued, quietly, patiently, faithfully. New understanding began to form. He saw mistakes he would never repeat. He gained wisdom he could not have learned any other way. He became stronger where he once broke easily. And then, unexpectedly, a new opportunity appeared. Not flashy, not easy, but real. It demanded everything Miles had learned so far, and more. He stood at the edge again, aware that this step would stretch him beyond comfort. The light was closer now, he could feel it. But one final layer of darkness still remained. And that is where we pause. Because the next part of Miles' journey will test not just his discipline, but his heart. He learned that real growth does not need noise. He stepped into the new opportunity quietly, aware that it would demand more than skill. It would demand integrity. Every action mattered now. Every choice carried weight. Mistakes would not be ignored this time. At first, things felt unfamiliar. The environment was different. Expectations were higher. People watched closely, not to help but to judge. "Don't mess this up," a voice inside him warned. Pressure returned, sharper than before. Some days Miles felt like an outsider. He listened more than he spoke. He observed how people acted when things went wrong. He paid attention to who stayed honest and who cut corners. That was when he saw something clearly. Many people wanted success, but few respected process. Many chased results, but ignored character. Miles chose a harder path. When shortcuts appeared, he refused them. When excuses felt easy, he rejected them. When fear whispered, he answered with discipline. One evening, someone said to him quietly, "You're too serious. Relax a little, everyone does it." Miles looked at him and replied calmly, "Everyone may do it, but not everyone grows." That decision cost him popularity, but it protected his peace. There were nights when he felt alone again, not lonely, but isolated by choice. He spent those nights reading, reflecting, and sharpening his understanding of life, not just how to succeed, but how to stay grounded. He wrote another sentence in his notebook. "Light without integrity becomes destruction." Time passed. Small wins appeared, trust slowly grew, people began to depend on him, responsibility increased again, and this time Miles felt ready. But life never tests you only once. A moment came when Miles was treated unfairly, blamed for something he didn't do, spoken about behind his back, his name questioned. Anger rose in him quickly. "This isn't right," he thought. "I don't deserve this." He wanted to defend himself loudly. He wanted to fight back. He wanted justice immediately. But he paused. What would Light do? He asked himself. Instead of reacting, he stayed calm. He spoke truth clearly when asked. He let his actions speak where words would fail. Days later, the truth surfaced on its own. The same people who doubted him grew quiet. The same voices that accused him avoided his eyes. That moment taught him something no book ever could. Light exposes darkness without shouting. If you're listening right now and you feel misunderstood or unfairly treated, stay with this story. Some battles are not won by noise, but by patience. Miles walked differently after that, straighter, calmer, stronger. He no longer chased validation. He focused on alignment between his values and his actions, between who he was becoming and what he was building. But just when things seemed steady, life asked a deeper question. What will you do when light demands sacrifice again? Miles received news that forced him to choose between comfort and conviction, between staying safe and stepping forward. The decision scared him. This time the risk was personal, emotional, permanent. He sat alone, breathing slowly, heart heavy. "I asked for growth," he whispered. "This is part of it." He stood up. And with that step, Miles entered the most defining phase of his journey yet. The light was no longer distant. It was close enough to feel warm, and close enough to burn. And this is where we pause. Because what comes next will not just shape Miles' future. It will reveal who he truly is. Miles knew this was the moment everything had been preparing him for. The decision in front of him could not be undone. It would change how people saw him, how life treated him, and how heavy his responsibilities would become. Comfort waited on one side, purpose waited on the other. He did not rush. He remembered the nights of darkness, The confusion at 17. The discipline built when no one was watching. The failures that almost broke him. All of it had led here. If I choose comfort, he said quietly, I stay safe. If I choose light, I grow. He chose light. That choice did not bring instant reward. In fact, the first days were harder than he expected. More pressure, more expectations, less room for mistakes. He felt exposed, like someone standing under a bright sun after years in the shade. But he did not run. Miles leaned into everything he had learned. He stayed disciplined when tired. He stayed diligent when discouraged. He stayed honest when lying would have been easier. He worked with excellence even when no one praised him. Slowly, something powerful happened. People began to trust him deeply. Not because he was loud, not because he was perfect, but because he was consistent. Opportunities followed trust. Growth followed responsibility. Respect followed character. One evening, Miles stood alone again by a window, watching light fill the sky as morning arrived. He smiled, not because life was easy now, but because he finally understood. Light was never a destination. Light was a way of living. He realized that growth did not remove fear. It taught him how to walk with courage. Discipline did not limit him, it freed him. Diligence did not exhaust him, it built him. He was no longer searching blindly. He had become the light he once chased. And this is what the journey taught him. Darkness is not always evil. Sometimes it is simply ignorance. Light is not luck, it is learned. Growth is not magic, it is a daily choice. At 17, Miles chose to learn instead of complain. He chose discipline instead of distraction. He chose diligence instead of shortcuts. He chose growth instead of comfort. And those choices shaped everything. The lesson is simple, but not easy. If you want light in your life, you must build it. Through what you read. Through how you think. Through how you act when no one is watching. Your journey may start in confusion. It may pass through failure. It may demand sacrifice. But if you stay committed, if you keep learning, if you keep choosing growth, you will not just find the light. You will become it. Thank you for embarking on the journey to light with us. Go on, spring forth. Let your light shine before all. And do not just seek the light. Be the light. And that is the true journey to light.